Welcome to the Happy Disruptors podcast. If you're a creative thinker with an unconventional approach to your industry, you just might be a happy disruptor. Join your friends at the Great Outdoors Foundation for honest conversations about tackling critical issues like conservation with an uncritical disposition. If you like to smile and get things done, this is the podcast for you.
Hello and welcome to the Happy Disruptors podcast. I'm Katie and I'm so thrilled to be joined once again by the fabulous Hannah Dake. It's been a minute since you were on the Happy Disruptors, but today we're kicking off a series that's really a preview at our Athene Watershed26 content. As you are listening, that is live on our website, so make sure to check it out if you'd like more detail. But with that, HD, do you want to share a little bit about yourself before we jump in?
Yeah. Well, for starters, I do go by HD at the office. There are two Hannahs. I actually am somewhat new to the Great Outdoors Foundation team. We just celebrated my 1 year last week. So I'm the other half of this marketing team dynamic duo. I normally get to be behind the computer involved with the podcast. So you've got me on the front of the camera, so this is different for me. But yeah, I've been at GOF for about a year working on the marketing team. It's been a great last year. I love it. Prior to that, I was doing marketing in the mental health space. So marketing that matters is always kind of the thing I've been really interested in. So this work over the last year has been really awesome because nothing matters to Iowa right now more than this. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And for, I guess related to Watershed, HD is leading our Emerging Voices subcommittee. And so just to give a little bit of context, one thing that kind of sets Watershed apart is this committee and subcommittee structure that we've developed. We have an advisory committee with experts from across a number of different fields and sectors. And then for each of our content tracks, we have our subcommittees. Mm-hmm. So these subcommittees have helped advise not only on the content at the summit, but then also on our shared action plan, which we'll be rolling out at the event, which I'm really excited about. So can you tell me a little bit about your subcommittee and sort of the makeup of that group?
Yeah, so my subcommittee is actually really diverse. We have people that have been in the ag sector, have been in the conservation sector for quite some time. We have other people that are kind of at the beginning of their careers. But then we also have people that aren't necessarily in the traditional role in that way. So we have a couple people where social media is something that they're really big into, where they're working at design firms and they're doing conservation as a part of working at the design firm. So the career aspect that everybody brings to it is a little bit different, but then we also have a wide range of how did people get involved in the field? What age are people? Which is really important, I think, because in our conversations, it's really helped round out what exactly all these sessions are going to look like, just with everybody having a different avenue that they've gotten there and knowing how important it was for them all to have different perspective and different ways of getting involved in it. So it's been really great for formulating what we're going to talk about at Watershed. And then also what that shared action plan is going to be, knowing everybody needs something different to kind of grasp onto.
Yeah. And I love each of the content tracks I think is really beneficial and will serve a number of audiences. But I love the Emerging Voices content track because it really is looking at how are we bringing innovative perspectives to the field of conservation and ag. And so to your point, that could be people who are very early on in their career, sort of the conventional young professional, or it could be folks who have been working in this for a long time but are really taking a new approach or perspective, which is cool to see.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that people have transformed their career. It's been really interesting to hear from a lot of different people, where we have somebody who started in more of a traditional like soil and water conservation district job, and now they're doing something that's much more media focused, much more getting the information out there so that people that aren't directly involved in that spot are understanding like this is what's happening, this is why we need you. So it's been really cool.
Absolutely. Okay, so before we jump into the sessions themselves, why don't we just give the listeners an overview of the Emerging Voices content track. What are some of the themes that will be addressed?
Yeah, kind of the base along all of it is how are we getting these voices that haven't really been heard before or aren't the traditional conservation and ag story told. So a lot of our different sessions are focusing on maybe underrepresented voices, different stories that haven't been told before, whether that's the medium that they're in or just what they're talking about. And then also all of these resources that are out there that aren't as talked about, that are in the conservation space that we just need to be tapping into more so that people can get more involved in that area and start to use that to help conservation take off.
Yeah, absolutely. And then who would you say, obviously, or I shouldn't say obviously, the way that Watershed is set up, you know, anyone who is attending can go to any one of the sessions. It's not like you have to lock into one in particular.
Yeah.
But who is sort of the target audience for the Emerging Voices content track?
Yeah, I would say it's anybody emerging in the field for conservation. So whether that is, as we discussed, they are just getting started in their career and it's very early on for them, or maybe they've been in conservation and ag for years, but they're really wanting to dive into a different realm of it. Maybe they've been farmers for a while, but they've never done conservation practice on their land. So I would say anybody really interested in just getting into that new niche of conservation and getting involved in those new emerging practices. There's not necessarily a super big constraint around it. I think if it feels right to you, then join in on that track.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I love about the content, and we'll get into that in more detail here shortly, but it covers a really wide swath of interests. So I think especially, you know, considering that we'll have folks from the public sector and from the nonprofit sector, you know, depending on what your role is within that organization, there's probably something on this track that would apply to you.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that's so important is, you know, unless something really stark happens, we're probably going to be addressing water quality for quite some time. And I think that the unique thing about this track is that it's really elevating the next generation of leaders, which is so critical as we're thinking about, like, how do we perpetuate change and how do we continue to build this coalition beyond sort of, again, your traditional conservation / ag individual. So
yeah, I think something also that's really important to note is that something at the Great Outdoors Foundation that we really champion is protecting what we have, not just for today, but for the generations to come. And as this new generation is getting involved in conservation, you know, at my age, we're thinking about, okay, we're starting to get married, we're starting to have kids. What is our future going to look like for those people that we want to love and raise throughout the state for years to come? And so really challenging my generation, the generation right before me, to get involved in something that is going to last for years to come and far beyond us is really important, because it's not just what we have now, it's what we want to be here tomorrow. So emerging voices are really important for that reason.
Yeah, that is so important. And allowing the folks who have been working on this issue for decades to be able to pass the torch on to others. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's give a snapshot of the listener, or to the listeners, for each of the sessions, and just kind of as an overview, you know, we have 5 total breakout sessions for each of the content tracks. I think we've referenced here on the podcast before, but I'll just say it again. One of those is our dynamic partnerships content track, and that is one that will feature sessions from each of the other content tracks, really highlighting the critical partnerships here. So when we get to that one, I'll flag it just so that listeners are aware. But again, the agenda is live on our website, so if you want to see further details, you can go there. That'll include our large group sessions as well. So without further ado, this first session, Unlikely Allies, Women Shaping the World of Conservation and Agriculture. Tell us about that panel.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this one. And when we were talking through with the subcommittee, there was a lot of excitement from them as well. So that's the other thing that's really cool about this, is they're getting to help shape something that they're all really passionate about. But this whole session is just kind of talking about the agriculture and conservation space is not typically dominated by women, but it's a place where we very much need to be a part of those conversations. And so the whole session will be about, how do women get more involved in the space? When you're in the space, how do you advocate for yourself a little more? How do you make sure that you're not just at the table, but you're getting to take part in those conversations? So I think it will be a really formative conversation for all these women who have already been in the field to share their experience, their tips, and for the next generation of women, or maybe those in the field who just don't feel like they're as involved, to leave with expertise, tips, whatever it is, to really take that charge forward. So I'm really excited about that one.
Me too. And I think the cool thing about that panel is also just like the really interesting, unique careers that each of them represent. Some of them are from what you would consider maybe like a conventional conservation or ag role. But then some of them, as we were walking through the speakers, I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that was a job. That's so cool. So again, thinking about like, how do we get the next generation involved? Really making it clear, connecting the dots of like, if you want to make an impact, these are some of the opportunities that are out there.
Definitely. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. Next panel. Every single one of these I love, so I'm not going to say that every time. At least I'm going to try not to. But this one is obviously near and dear to our heart. New media as a voice for conservation.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this one. Also try not to say that about everyone, but I think this one is going to be super important because everybody is on media now, whether that's TikTok, Instagram, watching YouTube videos, whatever it is. Like, media is the medium that we are getting most of our news, most of our just general information from. And so this one is really going to be focusing on how are we using the platforms that we have, that we're on, that feel natural to us, to spread this conservation message, and how are people that are in the field doing this as a profession using their platform to advance this cause. So I think it'll be a really interesting conversation. I mean, everybody likes to talk to people that are kind of semi-famous and doing that as their thing. So like Iowa fame, cool. But getting to talk about how they're using something that feels very natural and organic to them, and that they love to just do, and charge this conservation mindset forward, because that's what our generation really needs to see. So.
Yeah, and again, painting with a broad brush here, but conservation in particular has been a pretty niche issue, and it can feel somewhat unapproachable because there's a lot of technical language. There's obviously, for good reason, a lot of like higher education required to sort of become an expert in the field. But in order to build this coalition of individuals who are going to be not only doing the hands-on work, but then also advocating for the change that we need, we've got to be speaking to people where they are. And so we've got some really cool, interesting, engaging individuals who will be able to speak to that in a really credible way, and just the way that they are using those platforms to share the message of conservation ag. Okay. This next panel is our crossover between emerging voices and dynamic partnerships, developing alternative markets for regenerative agriculture.
Yeah, this is going to be a really important conversation, just as you think through like what our state and our region has typically been for farming, and how some of those conversations between conservation and agriculture have made us think like, what are other ways that we could be doing things? We have to be aware that as we're making changes to one area, we also have to make changes to the other. So if we're going to shift some of the agriculture systems around, what is next for people? So this is going to be a really good conversation on what do those alternative markets look like? How do we support people when they're trying to get into that new market? How are we giving them business in those spots? And just hearing from people that have kind of switched their business over, or maybe that's where they started and they're in that ulterior market, and just really getting some good insight from them as to what the best way to support them to get involved in that really is. So it'll be really interesting.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the conversations that come out of this panel, because I think, for some folks, corn and soybean are absolutely going to be the crops that are most appropriate for them. That's what they need, and that is what they are really good at. But for individuals who are looking for other opportunities, either in other crops or produce, I think it's so helpful to hear from people who have kind of taken that leap of faith and really etched out a place for themselves in the market. So we'll have both those producers of the, whatever the regenerative ag commodity is, and then also the sort of consumer facing side, whether it's marketplaces or vendors who can serve as a connector, a catalyst between those two, the producer and the end user. So I think that'll be super interesting. And again, just trying to provide opportunity for discourse around, how this is not going to apply to every single person, but for those who are interested, how do we really support that venture?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, next panel is Ask a Farmer, Debunking Common Misconceptions.
Yeah, I think this one's going to be really important for that. As you mentioned, this used to kind of be more of a niche topic, water quality conservation, but it's not really anymore. It's a very widespread conversation throughout our state, but I think that there's still a lot of room to grow in our understanding and our appreciation for both sides. As I have gotten into this work over the last year being with GOF, I've noticed that there are really strong feelings on either side. And so having honest, just really empathetic dialogue between two people that maybe did not know what the other side was like is really important. So I think this panel is going to be really awesome for that. Asking farmers questions, understanding from their perspective and having them understand where your questions are coming from, just really helping bridge that gap of people not understanding. And then just seeing, like, as they are talking about their perspectives, their stories, how can conservation go farther on farms, and what does that look like across our state? There's going to be a very diverse panel of people talking that have all implemented conservation in a lot of different ways. And I think it'll just be really informative to people of what that actually looks like on a farm, as opposed to just what we think it might look like when we don't have a whole lot of perspective on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a theme that runs throughout all of these sessions is just the really human element of, conservation, agriculture, water quality. They are issues that matter because they're issues that affect people, right? So I think, again, bringing that human element into the conversation and allowing for connection between, especially our more urban or suburban attendees who, maybe have literally never had a conversation with a farmer before. That certainly was me not that long ago. And so really grateful for the folks who will be participating in that panel and willing to engage in such a meaningful way.
Definitely.
Okay. And then rounding out our last session, Who's Who and What's What, a snapshot of conservation ag resources. The format of this panel is one that I had never heard before, and it was brought forward by your subcommittee. It's called Pechacucha. Do you want to first tell the audience what that is for those who don't know? We'll start there.
So Pechacucha is 20 slides, and each slide gets 20 seconds. So it rounds out to 6 minutes and 40 seconds of each presenter getting to talk. So the session will have a lot of different presenters, and they're all doing kind of like a rapid fire information. So it kind of gets away from that one person with their clicker and a PowerPoint just for an hour kind of thing. It makes it more engaging, a lot faster. So it'll really keep the audience engaged. It'll keep the person, you have to challenge yourself, like, how am I going to get all this in just 20 seconds? So a very unique format, which we're really excited about, because that's one thing that all the subcommittees, but mine was like, we really want to make Watershed different. Like, how is this going to be different than a regular conference? How can we make it fun? So that's how we're starting with that format.
Absolutely. And I think the cool thing about this is the organizations that will be featured in that session are really kind of like the tried and true of either nonprofits or agencies that are working within conservation and agriculture. But the spin on this, going back to the Emerging Voices track, is, what are some of the resources that people don't know about, or what's something new that this entity is taking on? And I think just bringing them all together and giving the full landscape of, there are just so many incredible entities that are working on these issues. So I think it'll be a great session for folks who are either, just lightly dipping their toe in the water of conservation ag, and they maybe aren't familiar with one of these, or even those who have been in the arena for a while because you'll be getting sort of a new angle, a new perspective on those individuals.
Yeah, it's always important, even if you've been in the space for a while, to brush up on your, as we said, like alphabet soup. There's so many different organizations, and they're all doing so many different things, and everybody is doing new things too. Yeah. So just to really round out your knowledge of all of these acronyms, because there's a lot to get lost in.
Absolutely. Yes. So that will be the fifth and final session of the Emerging Voices content track. HG, anything that we haven't covered that you want to highlight before we jump into our final segment?
Yeah, I just think overall, the thing that really excites me about the Emerging Voices track is there's such momentum right now around conservation, but also for me, I've seen more of this, obviously, the Emerging Voices spaces. There's a lot of people that are getting started in this area that know if we just join together and we have all these people working on all these things, and if we just go in the same direction, working towards the same goals, there's a lot we can really get done. And so that's what makes me really excited about this track is if somebody comes and they're attending these sessions, I feel really confident that they're going to leave very empowered and have a lot more knowledge of these are things happening in my state and this is how I can be a part of the solution. And that's ultimately the goal of Watershed. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Okay, well, we are going to move into our final segment, let's whiteboard it. So your whiteboard and marker over there on your table. I'm giving you instructions as if you aren't already
I don't already watch this all the time.
For those who are not weekly listeners, Let's Whiteboard It is a segment we do every week, and it's a random question. HG does not know what it is, and you can either write or draw your response. You are an artist.
No.
Okay, so my question for you today is, what are you most looking forward to about Athene Watershed 26?
Okay.
And while Hannah is writing or drawing her response, make sure to like and subscribe wherever you are listening. Again, you can find all of this information on our website, greatoutdoorsfoundation.org. Under the events tab, you'll find Athene Watershed 26. We haven't said this already, but do just want to give a huge thank you to our partners at Athene for making Watershed possible. They have served on our advisory committee and have given really great insight there as well. So we're so thrilled to have them joining us at the conference. And then make sure to follow along with what the Great Outdoors Foundation is doing on all major social platforms. You'll see lots of Watershed updates there over the next couple of weeks. So be sure that you're following along. All right. Have I given you enough time?
Yes. I didn't draw it, so I had plenty of time.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah. I'm going to pan to the camera because I know how this works.
Yes.
My action and empathy is what I'm most excited about. I think the action that will come out of this is going to be really transformative, especially when we have the shared action plan, giving people those steps. But also just the empathy of the understanding of all of the different sides of the story, how we can all work together, and just adding that human aspect to a story that is very prevalent in our state right now, but doesn't necessarily have that face-to-face aspect right now. So I think those two things are going to be really powerful coming out of it.
Absolutely. I agree. So excited for it. We're on the final countdown. Yeah. When this airs, I think it'll be early May. So just
we're getting close.
right on the horizon. Excellent. Well, HG, thanks so much for hopping on this side of the camera this week. Thanks so much for listening, and we will see you again soon.